The new Helluva boss episode, Mastermind, just got released, and it was pretty epic despite us still having a season finale coming next month that's bound to up the stakes even more. So let's break down Blitz and Stolas' new relationship dynamic, as well as what we learned about the 3 new deadly sins, Satan, Leviathan, and Belphegor. My name is Impcut, welcome back to Cartoon Universe, and hit that subscribe button because we'll be talking about this episode all week. Now, previously in Helluva Boss, Blitz and Stolas had reached a rocky place where Blitz was letting go of Stolas and letting him live his own life and seek romance with others. We knew the two would have to come back together in some form eventually, and of course, this episode delivered on that. The episode started with Stella and Andrealphus, where Stella finally explained that Blitz was using Stolas for his grimoire. This is an obvious crime, and with that in mind, Andrealphus is able to get an emergency meeting of demon royalty to arrest Blitz and his gang and hold a trial. Here, we would not just meet Satan for the first time, who becomes an important part of this episode and possibly even the show as a whole going forward, but we also finally get to see the deadly sins of envy and sloth, Leviathan and Belphegor respectively. This was in addition to Mammon, Ozzy, and even Beelzebub returning, and not just with a visual or a quick line, but there was some full-on interaction between the different deadly sins. The only one, of course, who is not present is Lucifer, as he's the character specific to Hazbin Hotel, and as of now, it would seem like Amazon Prime won't allow him to appear in Helluva Boss. It's a goal of Vivziepop's to get all 7 sins in the same room together for a scene, however. So hopefully this is just setting up the possibility that we can return here in a later season and see all these faces with Lucifer. Now, as for Stolas and Blitz, their plot was pretty simple in this episode. We knew the two missed each other and needed a reason to get back together, and Andrealphus' plan here actually makes it happen. For stealing the grimoire of Stolas, Satan and Mammon want to see Blitz and his team executed, whereas Ozzy of course wants to hear Blitz out as he's rescued Fizzarolli in the past, and even Beelzebub comes to Blitz's defense cause she knows he can't be that bad after meeting him at her party. This doesn't really work out, with Blitz agreeing to be sentenced to death in order to keep the rest of the IMP gang alive, at least until Stolas finally shows up. Another Goetia, Visago, who is apparently very close to Stolas, insists that he should be there to speak his part of the story, and when he finally does show up, the court's decision is swayed. Despite that Blitz did initially actually try to steal the grimoire, Stolas admits that he's the real mastermind behind its use on Earth, and for that, he is sentenced to live among the locals of Hell without his titles or fortune. This meant that Stolas needed a home, and he was able to go and live with Blitz, but more on that in a video tomorrow. As today, I want to focus more so on the brand new sins we met. Now, Satan in particular was the real star of this episode, and he's a character that fans have been waiting for really since Hazbin Hotel, where it was assumed that he would be rather close to Lucifer. In real-life mythology, Satan is generally seen as the ruler of Hell, sometimes being synonymous with Lucifer, with some traditions holding them as separate entities entirely, essentially co-rulers of Hell. In the show, Lucifer is considered a fallen angel who existed in heaven long before knowing about the existence of Hell, as it was his choice to give the forbidden fruit of knowledge to Eve that opened the portal to Hell. According to Satan in this episode, however, he is not some fallen divine entity from heaven like Lucifer, and instead says that he ruled Hell long before the Golden One, as he calls him, fell into Hell. This gives the indication that Hell didn't manifest into existence, but rather had existence for who knows how long before a portal could be opened connecting it to the rest of creation. Satan is seen as having more authority than the other sins, it would seem, with the other sins being a lot smaller than him, and also spaced more evenly between him and Lucifer, with Satan's seat at the bottom and Lucifer's at the very top. Satan thus is probably what we should call the real ruler and leader of Hell, and the one who leads the plans for conquering Earth, with Lucifer being someone who is forced to just witness everything while trying to manage things more diplomatically. Despite this symbolism, on top of Satan's claims, however, Vivziepop mentioned in a tweet that Satan was supposed to be presented as exaggerating the truth at the very least. The implication here may be more so about Satan's power, as it seems the other sins don't take him as seriously as he takes himself. Thus, Satan may not be the big guy in charge that he claims to be, and only gets to masquerade that way with Lucifer not showing up to meetings. But I still want to believe that this means that Hell did exist long before Lucifer created a portal to it, and that these sins had been ruling over their own rings in that time. There may be a real reason that Lucifer is not at that meeting that day, but with us being able to see spiderwebs on his seat, it gives the impression that he hasn't been there a long time and isn't taken very seriously there. Satan himself looks like a cross between a dragon and an imp, which is important because he mentions specifically being the creator of imps, seemingly making them in his image to be smaller, obedient servants. It's also fun to note that he has workout gear included in his design, as he has a workout-themed app that you can see on Blitz's phone in an earlier episode. Now, in addition to Satan, we also got a great look at the Sin of Envy, Leviathan, and the Sin of Sloth, Belphegor, though neither had any real lines. Leviathan is referred to as Levi by Mammon, which seems to be an attempt at a cute nickname until you realize that Leviathan has two heads, and that Leviathan might be a combo name of the two identities together. The idea of Leviathan having two faces, or rather two heads, was something foreshadowed back when we saw the demonic apps that Blitz had on his hell phone. Like Satan with his workout app, Leviathan appeared to have a TikTok-style app called Envy, a reference to the Envy Ring. This app has an icon with a fractured face, which was believed more so to hint at the fracturing effect of social media on the human mind, and the trends like headmates and such that they helped popularize. But it was also a reference to Leviathan in the show having not just two faces, but two heads. This doesn't appear to be based on any particular real-life similar figure to Leviathan, who is only described as having one head himself in real-life writings, and it's something I'm curious to see explored in the show. The two heads are interestingly very different, with one looking more so like they embody darkness and giving off just a tiny bit of bioluminescent light, and the other being naturally brighter featured, giving them a yin-yang look. They also seem to be divided on what they want as a unit, as when Mammon asks out Levi after the execution, one of Leviathan's heads smiles and the other one looks disgusted and disturbed. Leviathan's outfit even captures this duality, with it looking a bit like a demonic take on a yin-yang symbol. There seems to be a plan for this character despite us still not seeing the Envy Ring after every other ring has been visited once and some even multiple times, and I'm curious to see where that goes. The same doesn't quite seem to be true for the character of Belphegor, the deadly sin of sloth. While we've seen her ring in the past and it's quite lovely, she seems to be the least character of the deadly sins, if that term makes sense. The one who mostly just fits the bill of what she needs to be in order to be a part of this team, where the other characters have more rounded out personalities to be featured in the show. We know the Sloth Ring as a big medical industrial complex that scams the residents of Hell out of reasonable care, and it floods the market with pharmaceutical drugs that keep the population high, particularly its own population in the Sloth Ring. Belphegor seems no different from the doped up demons we've seen there in the past, legitimately just passing out at the meeting and barely keeping her head up for most of it. It's an easy out for her character to not really need to be present or important to the story, though I'd still love to see her again and get more development, and I'm sure we will. What's really important about her revealed design here is that, like the candle-headed goat demons of the Sloth Ring, she has a candle on her head, and more so resembles Baphomet than the actual drawings of Belphegor. Baphomet was a figure from centuries ago that the Knights Templar were allegedly worshipping, which would later be drawn by Eliphas Levi as the entity representing balance in his occult philosophy. This would later be taken and used as the design for the devil by the Church of Satan, but there is no direct association with the deadly sin of sloth or Belphegor in Baphomet's history, at least as far as I've seen. Belphegor is a mythological demon with very little backstory, I would say, and in the original writings of the 7 deadly sins was kind of just a bonus name used to fill in the gap among the more well-known Satans and Lucifers and Mammons and such. Belphegor thus became the best sacrifice to be linked to Baphomet directly, allowing Baphomet a way to interact with the other characters in the show. Now, in addition to the 6 deadly sins and Lucifer's BRB sign, we also got to see some new Goetia, some of which were already shown in the trailers, and I'm excited to break them all down. But that will be more so in its own video after I take the time to really dig through their designs. But in the meantime, what do you think? Let me know which of the new sins is your favorite, which of the new Goetia you're looking forward to hearing more about, and what you loved about the episode in the comments down below. If you haven't seen it yet, go check out the breakdown I did of the Greek gods in the indie animated series God School that we put out earlier this morning. Or if you're a fan of the anime Serial Experiments Lane, I actually did a big breakdown of the show over on our other channel, Random Universe, where I get rather deep into the history of Baphomet and the Knights Templar, so consider checking it out if you want more information on that. Links as always are in the pinned comment down below, and I'll see you next time.